today I'll be discussing my part 2 of my mapping assignment. The part 1 was obviously the paper. But I also want to mention that I'll be incorporating things in my paper into the slideshow or presentation. I also want to mention that I'm going to be bouncing around this Google slide in Google Maps just to give you a better idea of what I'm trying to say. And lastly, when I was completing this assignment, I was looking at it through a lens where I am a Towson student, obviously attending Towson, and I'm making the big change of moving to a city in Idaho. And that city happens to be, drumroll please, Rathdrum, Idaho. So I want to first give you some quick background information on Rathdrum, Idaho. So, according to datausa.io, the capital of it's 457 miles away from the capital of Idaho. The capital of Idaho happens to be Boise or Boise. According to datausa.io, the small city is home to about 9,000 people, and I would say it's an interesting mixture of rural and urban environment. I want to quickly just talk about the demographics about Rathdrum, Idaho. It's a prominently white city with over 87% of the city being white. Next, I want to talk about the economy of Rathdrum. The average salary per person is about $34,000, while the average household income is $81,000, according to datausa.io. So, my quick opinion on Rathdrum is that it could be much worse. The change from Towson, a more urban city. In Towson, you see a lot more vertical zoning. What vertical zoning really is just buildings stacked on top of each other. But, for example, apartments are like that because they have multiple floors. You also see that with smaller stores in Towson. Typically, you won't see them in like a big franchise, but they do. There's just mainly a lot in Towson. And I mentioned that because in Rathdrum, there's actually, I was able to, you will see later that on the Google Maps, there's honestly very little. Honestly, I think there's none. There's no vertical zoning in Rathdrum, Idaho. So that's the first change that I want to mention. But first, the purpose of this assignment was to identify your needs when moving to a city like this. So I figured that I needed a model to look at, and I thought, what better model than Maslow's hierarchy of needs? So that very first tier of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is basic needs. So that consists of things of like food, water, sleep, and clothing. And to me, it's kind of hard to stay in this tier without moving to the second tier of Maslow's hierarchy, which is safety and security. I say that because it's going to be hard to obtain things like food, water, and clothing without generating or having a steady flow of income. And that's where my next slide comes in. So I was able to find a job on Indeed.com, and it happens to be the Dollar Tree. I chose a Dollar Tree just because I think it's pretty realistic and obtainable for me to get. I want to talk about the how much I'm making over there, and it's about $7.25 per hour. So when you're comparing that to the average salary of just a Rathdrum resident, which is $34,000, I'm gonna be making a little bit less than half of that. I'm gonna be making around $15,000. So obviously I'm a little bit short on cash. So that's one I want you to shift your attention to the picture on the left. So this is a listing on roomies.com, and this is essentially, roomies.com is a room rental website. So I'm going to be living in somebody's house, but if you want to read, it's gonna come with its own private room and own bathroom for a great price of $650 per month, and it's furnished. So I just didn't think you could beat this, so I decided to keep this, and this is the actual neighborhood. So the actual neighborhood is, it's very nice. Seems pretty safe. Seems very civilized. The houses look great. I wanted you to turn your attention to these mounds over here, though. When when I stated previously that Rafton is an interesting mix of urban and rural area, I really truly mean that, and you're gonna see that later on again. But I wanted to turn my attention to, or our attention to, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The second tier, which is safety and security. I also want to mention that I decided to invest in myself with some health insurance. I decided to get the cheapest gold plan provided by Holy Cross of, Blue Cross of Idaho, and I decided to get the cheapest gold plan of Blue Cross of Idaho, and that comes to around $333 per month. And the great part is it comes with a $20 copay. I think things always happen, so I think it's very important to prioritize your health. Because you never know what could happen. You could get sick. You could break your leg or anything like that. So I just think it's important to have that health insurance. However, I want to get out of this and move along to the Dollar Tree side of things. So this is where the Dollar Tree is, right? And you're probably wondering, where is the Dollar Tree, right? So your answer is, if you do a quick 360-degree turn, right, you can see there's a nice little street. It's pretty, I guess you can say pretty alive, right? There's a lot of cars on the road. But if you do a full turn, you can see there's a whole shopping center. And just based off what I initially showed you, the mountains, or over here I should say, the mountains, the grassland, the farmland, whatever you want to call it, you wouldn't really typically think that there's a shopping center very close to here, but there is. And Towson and Rathdrum do have those similarities with having these type of shopping centers. If you told me that this kind of road, or this was in Towson, I wouldn't call you crazy or anything. Maybe I'll be a little bit suspect because of these trees, but I can guarantee there's a shopping center very, very similar to this one. So that's what I mean when Rathdrum is a very interesting mixture of rural and urban area. And that comes with its pros and cons. And now I want to discuss, I guess, the consequences of my decisions. And what I mean by that is, living in a city that is so small can start problems. So the biggest problem to me is job opportunities. I think you're very, very limited on career options. I think it's either retail. Your biggest option is probably retail. But I just think it's going to be hard to advance your career in general. Living in Rathdrum, Idaho. It's a small city, 3.2 square miles, not that big. So I just think it's very important before moving there to have that into consideration. Because, if you look at what I'm moving into, working Dollar Tree, renting a room, obviously not the best situation, but I just think it's important. And then the second thing I want to mention is entertainment options. I feel like the entertainment options are very, very, very thin. When I was looking around the city, I was able to find things like, I was able to find notable entertainment options like the gym, parks, and there's a couple ponds, maybe two ponds, but or lakes. Overall, I think the change from Towson to Rathdrum is going to be difficult, to say the least, but not impossible. I just think it's important to have those two things into consideration. But one thing I want to mention to anybody, or suggest or recommend to anybody before they move to Rathdrum, is I think it's very important to develop a routine, because if you don't, I just feel like you're going to be lost or bored most of the time. So I think it's very important to have that routine, whether it's something small, which is, it could be going to the gym in the morning, or then going to work, and then going back to your house. I think it's very important to have those things like a routine because it just has provides that balance for you. So overall, my overall opinion on Rathdrum is that it's a very small city, but it does come with its pros and cons. Um, it being safe, but you know, it also being small is a pro and a con. It just depends on what you want. So thank you for listening to our presentation, and I hope you learned a thing or two more about Rathdrum, Idaho. Thank you.